For everyone who's joining in right now, this session is going to be on sensing, shaping, and storming new business norms post-COVID-19. And our speaker today is Anisha Motwani. She's the director with the World Bank on the prestigious Swachh Bharat program, adoption of solar rooftops, and National Mission for Clean Ganga. She's also the strategic advisor to the Wellspun group of companies in the entire Max Group on guiding them on key brand and digital transformation projects across several lines of businesses. She's the author of Storm the Norm, a first of its kind collection of 20 contemporary stories of truly inspiring businesses and brands from India that either wrote or rewrote the norms of their respective industries and brought in unprecedented change and vibrancy. Anisha is a multifaceted business leader. She draws from a rich experience of over 28 years in diverse industries, advertising, automobiles, financial, and health services. I think we are truly delighted to have you on this webinar. If you're excited about this, write excited in the chat box. I want to see the chat roll. If you're excited about today's webinar, write excited in the chat box. There you go. Brilliant. Okay, looks like the energy is built up. I'm going to give a round of applause. Everyone who can, at your home, give a round of applause for Anisha. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anmol. That was a very inspiring morning, Monday morning, for the kind of introduction that I got. And I am looking forward to this session, and I welcome everybody who's joined in. Little did I realize when I wrote this book with this title that, it's going to be a few years, in such a short period of time, we'll do get an opportunity to honestly storm some norms. And it's the whole topic just seems so relevant today. And I'm sure everybody, all of you can relate to this, because as we all know that the reality is, very, very different. Just give me a minute, please. Anmol?
Yes.
Anmol, my screen share is not moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, now it should.
Okay. I guess it's the Monday morning network, everybody working from home and the network is just so busy. So you're just going to bear with the instability of the network as we move forward. And I just want to begin by saying that the history of COVID will be written by stormers, by people who will be able to storm new norms, because something like this is so unprecedented. We have never seen a world like this. Never did we even imagine it in our wildest fantasy. Even in these movies that we see, we would not have imagined that 70% of the world will be locked in. So this is a first of its kind, and it truly is an inflection point. And there are two ways in which we can deal with it. We can deal with it as a pessimist. We can deal with it as an optimist. And I choose to deal with it as an optimist, because we know that life on the whole will come out of the stasis, slowly, steadily, but the power of human spirit is going to prevail and we shall overcome. And in hindsight, when we look back, this is our chance to tell a story about our business, about our organization, about what we did different in life and how did we change ourselves. Because the world will only change if individually all of us take the responsibility of changing ourselves and our businesses. That's when a new, better world will emerge. And I personally think that one of the rules in my world is that it is hard to catch up and even harder to go ahead once you fall behind. So this is the time we really have got quality time to actually pause, to introspect, to be able to look back and say what is important and what is not. Because this is our chance to say, what do I want to keep as I move forward and what do I want to throw? Because believe you me, there are several things that you will have to throw because things will change. And as I move forward, the economists have told us, and you would have heard, many of you would have heard of this because it is public domain knowledge, that whether it is a crisis, a pandemic, or an epidemic, recoveries have happened. We have always come out of it. But the kind of recoveries vary. And I'll take a few minutes, to explain what I mean by this. There is a V-shaped recovery. And as the shape indicates, this means that you go to the bottom and you quickly come out of it. The business comes out of it, life comes out of it, and in fact, you go back to the same normal. You go back in a very short period of time to where you left. Okay, that's a V-shaped recovery. It's more cyclical in nature. Now there are U-shaped recoveries, which are a little more gradual because the demand gets delayed. And we know that in this case, the kind of pandemic that we are facing, it is quite possible that our recovery could be a U-shaped recovery where it will take a little time for demand to come back because several things are going to change after this. And this is also cyclical in nature, but eventually you do come back to the normalcy and to a better world, or if not to a same world. The worst of the recoveries are the L-shaped recoveries. These are like double dip and stretched, where actually the new normal is worse than what you left off. And these are structural in nature. And so far, we haven't seen too many evidences of L-shaped recoveries. It's either been V-shaped or L-shaped, and especially recoveries which are based on pandemics and epidemics. So I know that this particular epidemic is far, far worse than what we've seen before this. But typically, if you look at it, human beings do find a cure and a prevention. Today's science and technology is so advanced that we will sooner or later find a cure out of this for this particular condition, for this particular virus. And we've got history again here when the SARS outbreak happened in China in 2003. By January 2004, we were able to recover back and the market stabilized in the next 8 to 10 months. Similarly, in 2011, when the Fukushima disaster happened in Japan, the market did stabilize by January 2012. And when the MERS outbreak happened in South Korea, the recovery was very rapid, and then it gradually started stabilizing. It took a little longer, but it did stabilize. But what is important to remember is that when we do bounce back, in the immediacy of a disaster and its near-term aftermath, we tend to actually catastrophize and not be able to look beyond the worst case scenario. So you immediately get into a kind of a hyper mode of trying to, make up for the lost time. It's like, I've lost so much time. Let me just rush back, and you plunge back. It's almost like mindless plunging back into action. Okay, and this leads to a lot of knee-jerk reactions from the public at large, and especially in the world of business. And this is what we want to avoid. This is where I think the biggest learning could be. That how do we not go back to a kind of a frenzy of activity where we come up with a lot of knee-jerk tactical actions, which might be good in the near term, but in the long run, they might
Okay, I request the audience to stay on. There might be a little network drop.
I think across India, many places, the signal issues many are facing, and even in trial, we faced this yesterday.
Yes. So
no problem. I will wait. No problem.
Yes. So let's do a quick recap before Anisha is back. What were the 6 C's that Mr. Kamal Bali had mentioned? The 6 C's. Let me see who amongst you has been a very, very good listener, someone who's taken back the learnings. This is a question to my audience. The 6 C's.
One C, the whole world now repeating. That is cash flow.
Cash flow, perfect. I need the other 5 C's. The one person who gets all the six C's gets a trip to China. I'm sure you don't want to go there. We're talking about customer. Yes, that's the second C. Community is brilliant. That is the third C. Okay. Communication, brilliant. Yeah, communication. Cost reduction, brilliant. Okay, so let me bring out, the 6C. So we forgot to mention colleagues, right? Colleagues, they need you more than ever. That's what Mr. Kamal was talking about. Customers, add value to them and they will never forget you. As Mr. Prabhu said, cash flow, that's the king of any business. So you need to preserve it. Cost reduction, as many of you pointed out, keep your costs low. Think of some jugaad. Communities, maintain harmony. It's time for humanity to take over. And of course, communication, keep it flowing on both personal and professional fronts. Okay, well done. We have an attentive audience. Okay, Mr. Harish spoke about 4 phases of a marketer during these tough times. 4 phases of a marketer. Let's see how many of you can remember this. I believe the webinar was held a week back. There are 4 phases of a marketer during these crises.
3 weeks, just keep yourself idle.
Great. So wait.
Don't do any adventures.
I love the way you said it. Don't get into adventures. So the start is the waiting phase, which can last from 3 to 6 weeks. Brilliant, sir. What is the next part? Okay, Balaji, you're right. It says act. You have said react, but that's fine. Act. You have to act 6 months post the lockdown. And what happens post that? It is resume cautiously. Resume cautiously. That's what is you need to see how people are reacting. And the 4th phase, of course, is business as usual. Brilliant, Sriram. I think Sriram has got this fully right. But did he say it after I told all the answers, or did his message come before? Okay. Well done, Sriram. Well done. Great to know that you've been very active. Okay. Moving to what Mr. Kumaravail said. He said that if you follow the masses, they will take the M away from you and make you dash. Okay, this chat is just going to go in a different direction right now. If you follow the masses, you will they will make you remove the M and you will become dash. Okay, looks like this is a tough one. Yes, not ashes, it is actually asses. That's what he said. Right, remove the M and you just follow the masses, you become the asses. Okay, let's see who can complete this. And end in the road, maybe a dash in the road. Complete that dash.
Beginning.
No, it's the bend in the road. Brilliant. I think Velusamy got it first. No, Siva got it first. Well done, Siva. An end in the road may actually be a bend in the road.
Madam, back.
And then we see this is not the end of the road. Anisha is back, and over to you.
I am so sorry. This is the Monday morning network. Blame it on
no
that.
No problem,
please.
madam.
No problem.
No issue at all. Okay. Please be comfortable and continue.
Carry on, please.
Yeah. Okay. Like I was saying, there are several norms that are actually going to get challenged, not because you and me are doing something, but because at a larger geopolitical level, the political environment and the way the different countries is dealing that determine how the new these
Anisha, I think the network is still choppy. Can you just check once again, please?
The presentation is visible and only audio is breaking.
Hello?
Yes, Anisha,
Yes,
your
ma'am.
network broke again. So I think if we can restart, that will be great from,
Yes.
yeah.
So I was saying it is not that, the world, we are going to do anything different. It's that the geopolitical environment is going to change significantly. And that would depend upon how the world leaders are actually dealing with this pandemic. And I'll take you through some of the norms that we hear are going to change. And this is obviously a lot of crystal gazing, but there's some evidence of it that is available that gives us the, a kind of a feeling that this is the way the wind is going to blow. The first one is globalization. In the last few decades, we have seen that a lot of boundaries actually got opened up. And there was this whole emphasis of globalization, and that had a direct impact on business, how it is easy to do cross border business, and many of us actually experience that. And from there, today I think there is going to be a retreat from globalization. There is in fact going to be a shift towards deglobalization, which means that increasing dependency on one's own country. We saw when this whole epidemic broke out in Wuhan first, the electrical and electronic components parts, which is where the hub was, the Wuhan was, those industries, because they were so dependent on parts coming from there, suddenly started realizing that their business is nothing without the parts coming from China. So that, I think, is going to be clearly an indication that there would be an increasing dependency on one's own country. Second, the balance of power is today in the favor of Western economies like US and UK. We've always in the last many decades said the power of US, okay? We are clearly going to see the shift in the balance of power towards East. China, Korea, and also India, it's our chance to emerge as the superpower. We've been talking about it, but the way we manage this pandemic is going to make us and accelerate our journey towards being a superpower. From secularism, to almost secularism at a global level, to protectionism and hyper-nationalism. We are seeing that the world is becoming less and less open and more isolated and more controlled. And that's also evident in the kind of leadership style that is being evident all over the world. Whether it is a Trump, whether it is China, whether it is Korea, Russia was already like that. We are seeing that in India too. The decisive, authoritarian, autocratic leadership style is today actually being appreciated because you are looking towards a leader who is able to take some calls and move us forward. Right, wrong, good, bad, we don't know. But at least there's somebody who is taking a call. So this style of leadership is also becoming, the minute you have leaders like that, they become a little more control oriented. And lastly, Gandhi used to say that the end of capitalism is socialism. I'm not so sure on this one. But when you hear stuff like universal basic income, you wonder whether we are moving towards socialism. All the efforts that today are going, they're going towards the individuals at the bottom of the pyramid. Are we moving towards socialism? Whichever way you look at it, every country and every business needs to prepare for this new geopolitical dynamics. And this will have a direct bearing on the business. Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
is it with the slides, Anisha?
yeah, the slides are not.
I think you'll have to put your cursor back on the slides, or you could
just give me a minute.
Just exit the screen and then come back to it.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. And as the geopolitical environment changes, we will see that the consumers will change too. And people will change their habits. And some of these new habits are going to stick because people will realize that actually some of these new things that we've adopted because of being in the situation that we currently are, we will realize that there are, some areas that we thought were not actually so good. We will realize that actually that's a better way of doing things. Working from home is one such example. It opens up a new world of opportunities. And consumers who've been slow to change, we thought that the technology is only for the millennials, but I think the baby boomers, the middle-aged, all those people who, due to behavioral inertia, were not able to adopt or change as quickly, today are given a no choice. And like we said, necessity is the mother of all inventions. And spending time at home could have two kinds of behavioral responses. There are some people who become more impatient, okay? And they become almost like pacing up and down saying, now what, now what, now what? And there are some people who become a little frozen and say, nothing's going to change. The world is what it is. What can I do? And none of these two responses are going to help us. It's very important that neither should we become frantic, nor should we become frozen. There will be a rise in social proofing, and I'll explain what social proofing is. It's a term that's coined by Professor Robert Cialdini, who says that, almost like this is, in a simpler word, this is more like herd mentality. We will get more and more comfortable with, if the world is doing it, that must be the right way of doing it. So you almost social proof yourself in the sense that society as large is doing it, and therefore that's the right way to do it. Now that itself is something that we have to be very careful of. People will be wary of big crowds for anything but very pressing reasons for a very, very long time. Cleanliness, health and hygiene are here to stay. Is there an opportunity hidden here? E-commerce habits, like I said, will expand to baby boomers and middle-aged. The reality of office employees logging in from home will also reshape the workplaces. And finally, there's a lot of introspection that's happening, and it is already happening. This is what we call a spiritual cocooning. If you cannot look outside, look within, okay? And when you look within, you will find a lot of answers. This is your time to find those answers. And, linked to all that I said about the geopolitical environment, about the way the consumers are going to change, it is very, very important that business looks at this as an opportunity too. And there are, and I've outlined, there could be many more. I've outlined 10 opportunity areas that are actually staring at us in the face. But that depends on how we leverage them, the courage that we have to make some structural changes in the way we do our business. And let me just go one by one in the interest of time. First of all, it's like we have to plan for a recovery using a barbell strategy. Barbell is a word, is a phrase that I borrowed from the financial world, okay? It's basically, it's a debt instrument in the financial world where there are, you invest in bonds that give you yields in the near term and that also give you, slightly lower yields in the long term. And many financial experts actually follow this strategy as far as the debt instruments are concerned to get a kind of a balanced output. Remember this phrase, when you go back to work, okay, when you go back to business, there is going to be a need to follow a barbell strategy. There is going to be, like I said, the pressure of immediate near term. This whole thing about wanting to catch up quickly, wanting to make do with the last time. But don't forget that equally important is that the world has changed, okay? And there are new opportunities sitting. And how do I cash in on that? And if you were to look at leadership, will have to play a very, very critical role in harmonizing the two and not creating a fiction. On one side, you have a war room, and on the other side, you have an innovation lab. On one side, you have to act like a combat warrior, and on the other side, you have to act like a dreamer, a beginner. You have to be willing to be a beginner and relook at things afresh. How do you balance the two? will become very, very crucial in the way you come out of this whole thing. So that's my first storm the norm, tip. The second one is, like I said, with a lot of hyper nationalism, this whole control thing that's going to happen in the geopolitical environment, a chance for India to gain ground from China. With friendly policies, China's loss could become India's gain. Japan's already announced a $2.2 billion, to its industry to exit China. Why can't India leverage that? So there is a chance for a Make in India, which was currently just a slogan and stumbling, to get fast-tracked and to really become something serious and big. And the SME industry is the best placed to actually leverage this opportunity. And secondly, Make in India for India, okay? Because in any case, your dependency for your own parts and for your own supplies, okay, will actually have to become, will have to depend locally, because we are realizing with the cross-border, proliferation going to minimize, the importance of having dependencies within is going to be very, very high. And there are many new industries that are going to emerge. We don't have a telecom manufacturing happening in India. Look, India is the world's second largest mobile consumer. We don't manufacture mobiles. I mean, this is just an example of what kind of industries and opportunities could spin off from this pandemic. As we go forward, and I'm going to move a little quickly because there were different things that could apply to different people here. There is going to be, with the lack of globalization or deglobalization, there is going to be a decline in supply chain, and cross-border transfer of, material and equipment and know-how and knowledge. And production and sourcing will come closer to each other. And many, many companies will actually look at not just, we are used to this minimal inventory and real-time supply and delivery. And that, I think people will realize that you need to have some kind of buffers, to have some inventory in the pipeline, so that you are not living minute to minute, that if something like this happens, you should have enough supply to be able to bail you out. So things like logistics, inventory management, warehousing facilities are going to emerge, and there is going to be a clear opportunity sitting there as well. Now, the minute you have so much of Make in India and supply chain happening, how do you manage the entire value chain of Make in India? You cannot obviously do everything yourself, from manufacturing to raw materials, to distribution, to supply, to inventory, to warehousing, to, to stocking and to retail. This is going to be, if you have to make this process efficient, it is important that we take a platform approach to manufacturing. And platform approach means that you are able to track real time your vendors and your partners, while you are focusing on your core, which could be just a part of this value chain. But there is a platform approach which gives you the visibility of what is your raw material requirement, where can you get it from, who are the vendors who have a ready supply available, what kind of time frames are they looking at. It is very important that you bring in this plug and play and agility. The e-commerce platforms have managed to do that. It is important that manufacturing businesses bring in the agility of platform thinking in their business operations. And I mean, there are separate, ways in which this can be done. And, I've done that for a couple of companies. And I'm telling you, those companies, and these are large conglomerates, and some of them are textile companies who've actually put this whole entire value chain platform approach in place, so that they are able to build a much broader portfolio, supply smaller volumes when the time comes, and also build in the flexibility. If one vendor is not available, do you have a second vendor as a backup? If a raw material is not available at some place, or if transportation is taking some time, is there a backup available? And where is that backup? All those flexibilities will be available if you take a plug and play approach to manufacturing, and not a very hard-coded assembly line approach. A hard-coded assembly line approach, if one thing stops in the assembly line, the entire assembly line starts breaking and starts becoming inefficient. But this requires some very different ways of working, including the way you do your organization structure and design. Today, our organization structure and design is from, you have product managers, you have category managers, you don't have platform managers who manage a particular skill of a particular kind. You need system integrators. You need project leads for that area of expertise. You need more vertical people within the value chain. You don't need specialist product category heads. Now that's what we call as the platform approach to business operations. That's the fourth one for me. The fifth one is, I think this is something that India has been very, very good at, our micro retail. Today, what is our savior is, we still have within a kilometer radius, we still have shops where we can walk up and get our packet of dal, and we can get our grocery, and we can get our packet of milk. This is India's strength, okay? Micro retail stores are here to stay. They will get reinvented. They will become more branded. They will acquire a bigger value, because large format retail is going to be the worst impacted from this. You will see that without global capital and with margin shrinking, the cost of rentals of high street and large spaces is not going to be coming back soon anytime, except for few who have deep pockets. Even companies like IKEA are shutting down in some countries of the world. Okay, if you look at J.C. Penney, Dorothy Perkins, IKEA, we're hearing that these are companies that are shutting down. So micro retail will emerge as a perfect blend of cost efficiency, location, technology, and customer experience. And location will be prioritized over floor space. You know, people will look for locations that are connected to transport, metros, e-rickshaws, and all within the 5 to 10 kilometer radius. And small will offer new levels of convenience, which means that, you know, this whole experience of, you know, browsing through a large store, I think is going to, for me, that's not going to be a most efficient way of managing your resources. It's better to come back and focus on the core, which is get customers to transact as quickly as possible. And how will you assist them? You will assist them with technology. And we'll talk about that in my subsequent slides. And micro hubs or satellites will also mushroom, which means that this is a hub and spoke model, that you have a warehouse somewhere, you're quickly able to supply to that micro retail shop. Because it doesn't have too much space available for storage, the supply will have to be from the hubs and satellites. So this is for me a great new opportunity that only India can leverage. The next one is omni-channel and physical. Like I said, with smaller retail stores, there will be less and less space and more need for technology. If you have to figure out if you have the product in stock or not, every small shop, like I said, they'll get branded and more smart. So there'll be e-shops and there'll be smarter shops. You will be able to, if you have a small tablet and if you have that software, you will be able to figure out which outlet, you know, which hub has got the stock available. Can people actually, you know, do their own billing and you just take the cash? Mobile cashiers, self-checkout in stores, facial recognition to facilitate electronic payments. This is something that today only large retail is doing. You will see that smaller retail, if it adopts this, okay? Because how many of us today are going into large retail outlets and actually searching online on our mobile and saying, is there a better rate available somewhere? You're standing in a large shop, but you're still Googling and searching. So phygital is the future. You will have to be physical and virtual at the same point in time. And we can do that in India if we actually optimize the location and space and use technology to make large spaces redundant. Okay, and this will also free up a lot of your resources. And you can deploy those resources or make your business more efficient. Moving to the seventh one, it is to invest in technology and move e-commerce from periphery to center stage. And I've seen that, and I've worked with a lot of large organizations. I can tell you e-commerce is still such an indulgence channel on the side. People have not taken that seriously. People have not taken that as the core channel of distribution. Today, every business, and I don't have to go into this detail, we are experiencing it all. Every business, adult education. I mean, there were so many people. I've taken on 2 courses in the last 3 weeks. I mean, adult education is a new industry. Health consults. I would never imagine I could, not have the doctor physically feel me and trust them for my medication and health. Psychiatrist, entertainment, I just name it. E-commerce is here to stay. So just make it a habit. And 21st century, at one level, the most important and the most unusual paradox will be, on one side, there is going to be deglobalization. And on the other side, you have a technology that is actually becoming more and more horizontal. Now the world will have to find a solution for this. Even today, I mean, you have watching a Netflix, but it's available on Amazon servers, and they are the common servers. Those servers are sitting in Amazon in US. Technology is actually not going to put an end to interconnected world. But how do we actually keep the safeguards? Because this could be the next, otherwise the biggest pandemic that you will see. If we give our lives in the hands of artificial intelligence to an extent that robots start controlling our lives. Imagine if one horizontal system were to crash across the world will come. Suddenly people will go and we will start putting in place a lot of technology and a lot of this thing. But just remember how modular it is and how are you safeguarding your interests to have local dependencies and not global dependencies end to end. Okay, these are building blocks that many technology companies will have to put in place. So for me, the important paradox of technology getting more horizontal and connecting the world, and the borders of the world, the physical borders of the world becoming more and more deglobalized, is now the next challenge that we will have to come out of. And this one is a softer one, and for me, this is my most favorite, okay? You will see that the workforce will change. There would be an eclectic mix of your workforce. On one side, this whole work from home will bring in a lot of women into workforce. You know what happened after the World War II? After the World War II, actually women in workforce number went up by almost 80%. That actually crisis brought women into workforce. And when I look at this opportunity, this whole thing about flexible working from home could be an opportunity where you would get, a lot of talented women to come and join your employee force with flexible hours and flexible days, and of course, restricted payables. Lots of job losses, and senior people, would either by choice or by compulsion will be available to you. So there'll be a lot of freelancers available, and experienced freelancers who otherwise we can't afford. Can we actually use them for our business? And when you use people on a project basis, there is a certain amount of discipline that comes in. I was talking to a couple of companies who I interact with, and they were saying, actually, our meetings have started finishing on time. Because when you're online and when you're working with a project team, it is important that you finish the meetings on time, because you are paid for only so much of their time. So you will see that your time will get optimized, and that time can be put to a lot more productive use. And employees, finally, the people who you really have, I think a healthy competitive environment where on one side you have diversity built in, on the other side you have the expertise of projects, leads, if you want to borrow from outside expertise available, I think their accountability will go up. They cannot afford to take their jobs for granted anymore. It's very important that this whole healthy competition is created between your employees and part-timers and full-timers. As I move to the next one, being a marketeer, I can't not talk about that, rules of marketing will also change. And there are, of course, several rules that will change. But here are some top of mind ones that, I'm going to talk about. The first one is about there is going to be a lot of social mistrust. So see, confidence building is going to be very, very important. Demand is not going to come back in a rush. There are lots of categories where, people will be not so sure about, should I trust this? Should I not trust this? And history has again evidenced, I have not shared this slide here, that people actually prefer to go with safer bets. And safer bets are names that they have heard before, okay, are things that people are familiar with or what people are talking about. So reprioritizing marketing efforts to focus on building consumer confidence with customer reviews. Make sure that when you start back, if you don't have a feedback form with a customer, make sure you create a simple 5-question, 3-question feedback form. Start taking feedback from customers. Make it a two-way loop, okay? And this feedback and this aggregation of numbers is what will give people confidence that I'm dealing with a company which has got trusted by X number of people. So ratings and reviews, e-commerce companies have started, but I think it is important that other businesses too start this, because there would be a lot of movement towards people trusting those that are in where you see a collective number available. You will have to cut down. You will have to focus on positive discrimination. It is important that we do not, do all that we had actually earlier envisaged to do. You will have to lure your customers back, and you will have to create a sense of urgency. Like I said, in the war room that you create for the immediate short terms, all your guerrilla tactics will have to come back into play. And here are some of them that I've listed down. You can look at them. And the last but not the least is this whole thing of for the next 6, 8, 10 months, this contactless experience, people will be scared, shy of being in physical proximity with people. So all these physical experiences that we've been talking about, you need to talk about how do I create a contactless customer experience and engagement. And what I mean by contactless is virtual. And how do you do that? Where you actually are still, you don't lose out on the human touch and the emotion of it all, but yet at the same point in time, you are engaging with them and giving them the feeling that you are personally there for them. I mean, and there are ways in which to do this, and we can do detailed sessions for those who are interested later. The last one is clearly here to stay, and this is the last one from me. We have to stress every asset with multiplicity. Okay, co-working and co-working had already started in India, but we will have to think of every place where sharing is possible. Okay, rent sharing. If you have to be in a strategic location, you will have to think of getting a complementary partner or a business with you, where two of you can actually rent a location and share it. Is that possible? Can you find synergies? All possible opportunities of staff sharing. Okay, can you make your staff available? They work 3 days for you and 2 days for somebody else, and similarly, vice versa is also true. Content sharing. We have created so much content in this world, and it is so discreet that we don't even know finally who's consuming that content. Where is it going? Can we start doing content sharing? Finally, cohabitation. Can we have community kitchens? In India, we always had these ashrams, okay? And today, if you look at it, the ashrams are, the ones where there is maximum amount of safety, because you have your social isolation, and yet you are not draining the country's resources. You are not running multiple kitchens, and you are not running multiple supplies. So for me, cohabitation, where you live and work at the same place, and some of the rules that are getting relaxed in the next few days, between today and tomorrow, we hear that the workers will have to live on site. Okay, so cohabitation will become a reality. So co-working and co-living, can it actually be considered? Public-private partnerships, this Arogya Setu, I mean, how quickly it has come about being. Otherwise, in India, public-private partnerships have their own bureaucratic red tapeism around it. I mean, that when necessity like this happens, it becomes important that, I mean, and we've seen that example come true with Arogya Setu as an app coming in public-private partnership. And the last one is honest public political relationship. Okay, we have seen that, I mean, and these are obviously without any biases. There are leaders, who have managed to deal with this epidemic much, much better because they have shown a lot of empathy. They've shown a lot of transparency. Please, when you go back to doing your business, remember, it is important that you care. Everybody will come back bruised. People will be hurt. People will have their own share of stress and dilemmas. How human are you in dealing with them? How transparent are you in dealing with them? Is what will, for me, separate a stormer from a normal person. It's important that your human spirit prevails and you deal with this entire business with a human lens, with a sense of empathy, that, and by putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And finally, I think at this point in time, cohesive action from humanity as a whole, to take us out of this. Because like I said, each one of us is responsible for our actions. If we individually do our bit, collectively we will get out of it. So as the world opens to a new reality, make sure you're ready to ride the wave. And like the Arabic proverb says, when the wind will blow, we should be ready to ride it. And I want you to catch the wind, to be ready to catch the wind and let yourself soar as the world opens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anisha. That was so insightful. What we'll do right now is open the floor for questions. So I'll get a lot of questions. I will just filter them and read the ones out to you. So feel free, everyone, to go ahead and start asking your questions. I have a question before anyone else does. So I heard a new book is coming out on cooking.
No, sorry. The new book is coming out on storming the norm.
Okay.
Itself, but it's not about cooking. Cooking is something that I'm practicing on a daily basis.
Okay.
Yeah. So the new book is also going to be about storming the norms.
Okay. Sure.
But in a new context.
Great. We're looking forward to it. So we have a question from Vijay Kumar. He says that do we, India as a country, have branded and market enough for our huge green energy production, which is a big contribution in sustainability manufacturing, which would help us bring business?
So that is exactly what one of my worries is. The world will be so busy in survival and getting the economy back on track that some of these things, which is the larger environmental issues, the green fuel issues, I hope they do not get deprioritized in the need for an immediacy. Because this is such an important question. Because if we go back to the same dependency on the way the oil has behaved and the whole economy going topsy-turvy with the price of oil going up and down, if we do not, again, at a larger level, at a larger global level, if we do not bring this, take some of these things into attention and not fall into this whole collective amnesia and the fact of here and now, we should be able to do something. I think this is the right time to do it. And this will also become a very useful critical tool in taking the economy forward.
Sure. Triloknath is asking, should we continue to investing in marketing in 2020? This phase, I believe he's referring to, is it justified in current situations?
So paid marketing has to be earned. Okay. Earn yourself the right to market. And when I say, please do not invest in buying customers. If you are doing your marketing because you need to buy more customers, because you need more acquisition, then no. I would much rather you invest in building engagement and communication with your customers, even if it means one-on-one and organic. Today, digital allows you to use, whether it is your website, whether it is your social media handles, please use them more organically and more authentically. Do not earn yourself the right to do paid media, is how I would put it. And that only you know whether you've earned yourself the right.
Great. Sri Daman is asking, Kirana stores will emerge, going by what you were saying. How will it be part of organized retail?
So for me, I think there would be a kind of a, what you call as the branded retail stores, okay? Kirana stores, and depends, I mean, like I said, a lot of this depends on if there is a lot of produce from farm coming straight to the city, okay? And if all the intermediaries get cut down, and if the margins get better, for me, these retail stores have got an opportunity to become almost like branded micro retail stores. And if the intermediary chain, which is there from the farmers to the retailer, if that gets leaner and if that entire supply chain becomes crisper, there is an opportunity for margins to be available to be able to lift the game on that.
Got it. We have a very interesting question from Vimal. He says that every country is out there to gain from China's loss, but isn't it also true that nations will try to build their own production and supply chain capacity instead of selecting country A over country B?
So I think this is a very interesting dilemma that you will face. And, I mean, the Prime Minister faced that when hydroxychloroquine was, requested for by America. Okay, that do I supply it to my own country first or do I send it to America? Okay, and that would completely depend on your supply capability and capacity. Okay, for me, I see this like an opportunity. Okay, and China and Korea today are feeding their own countries and they are feeding the world. Korea is supplying telecom, the telecom parts, whatever, to the entire world. Okay. How do we use this to actually beef up our capacities? And also there is obviously, all said and done, a lot of government fiscal support and policy changes will have to enable this. Okay, without that support, it's going to become an uphill task.
Sure. Hari Kumar is asking, is it advisable to start a small brand which is catering to a lower end and small town segment in clothing and garments?
I think that's a very, very specific question. There are a lot of questions that you need to answer before that. And for me, there are four things. One is, is there clearly a need, and is it a vacant need? Okay. The second one is, if there is a need, what is the size of the need? Can you size that need? Who else is supplying to it? The third one clearly is, what is going to be your differentiator? And one test that you must apply before you think of any new business is, are you creating new spends or are you shifting spends? Because with your product, if you create the customer's wallet is the same. Okay. You cannot create new spends. If you are shifting spends from A to B, then you should go ahead, but provided you are confident that your offering is so significant that you will be able to shift the spends. Because if each of us gets into new businesses assuming that you will create new spends, no, in fact, the spends are going to shrink. The wallet size is going to get smaller. So has your offering got the potential to shift spends?
I love the way you put it, shifting spends vis-a-vis creating spends. I think that's a very interesting concept. Okay. Pragya is asking a question on advertising, and I'm sure you've got rich experience in advertising. She wants to know that, is it the time to engage in trust building, or is it time to focus on differentiating products that are useful to customers, in terms of advertising, trust building versus focusing on differentiated products which are useful to customers?
I would focus, because, I would focus on building consumer confidence and trust first. Okay. Because I don't think at this point in time, consumer is looking for anything new. Okay, they would go back to somebody they trust. For them, the flight to safety versus the flight to uniqueness is going to be more important. So gain back their confidence, focus on building trust. The differentiation will follow.
Sure. Velusamy is asking, online companies stand to gain, but there are still entry barriers and mindset issues prevailing, like microfinancing companies unable to shift to online transactions. What's your opinion about it?
Well, I'm on the board of 2 microfinance companies, and let me tell you that they are already the ones that are doing significantly better are the ones who made that shift to online. Now, online is a very loosely used word. The minute we say mobile phones, okay, and the minute we say an SMS and a WhatsApp, even a WhatsApp is a smartphone. Okay, so the minute we say mobile and SMS and WhatsApp as online, okay, this clearly there is no going wrong with that, as long as there are enough safeguards and securities built into your transactions.
Sure. What do this group, largely ITF members, how can they leverage online?
For me, I think from a textile perspective, it is clearly supply chain efficiencies. This whole platform approach to manufacturing. How do you create a value chain where you have the visibility of from forest to fabric available, almost like from fiber to fabric available at a single glance. You might just be manufacturing a portion of it, but you have the ability to plug and play. If you need a textile from somewhere versus somewhere else, if you need to get a dye from somewhere else, cutting from somewhere else, how do you take a value chain, a platform value chain approach, okay, with enough backups built into the value chain? That for me will become very useful, even for small vendors. Maybe the industry, maybe ITF as a together can come together to put this platform. Maybe not each individual companies, but can this platform create a value chain platform? Because you have textile owners coming from different kind of domain expertise and areas of work. Imagine if they were all to get onto this platform to begin with. You would have a value chain already in place.
Right. So it's the end-to-end value chain that you think will be a great differentiator.
Yes.
Sure. Rahul is asking, what changes do you see in B2B versus B2C marketing? Will content going to be the main driving force to reach the customer and change their views towards the brand?
So B2B and B2C, I think there is a fundamental thing that's going to be common to both. Okay, B2B customers versus, and also B2C customers. Getting the customers back, okay, is going to be the biggest need of the hour. And how do we get the customers back, okay, is whether we do it through trust building initiatives. Trust building initiatives in a B2B might be more personal, and trust building initiatives might in the B2C space might be more digital because the numbers are large. So that for me is going to be the first priority. And on your second question, what was it, Anmol, your second part of the question?
Yeah, will it change the views towards the brand? So basically on content marketing?
Marketing.
Yeah, okay. To reach the customer and change their views towards the brand.
So for me, I will take a kind of I'll play a devil's advocate here. There would be an overdose of content, by the way, okay? Because there is going to be time available. You would see a lot of content, or everybody trying to do content, okay? Now the real challenge will come in curating that content and filtering that content and making that content little more palatable, okay? Now the right balance between form and function, okay, in the content will become important. So that I think will become more, you need to get a little sophisticated with content, because everybody will try and put out content there. how many people are reading, and this whole business of looking at likes and views to see that, you know, your content is getting appreciated. I think we must get out of that mindset. And you will be able to get out of that mindset provided you manage to optimize the form and the function in the content. I don't know if I'm making sense or it's too technical, but that is going to be important because there was going to be a overdose of content out there.
So you're essentially saying these are still, you know, vanity metrics, your likes and,
Yes.
you know, views. So what will eventually be the metric that people should be tracking closely if it's content?
See, one is that, you know, one is consistency. Okay. One thing that we have started doing is that we have started, you know, going very tactical. Today, you know, we will have a few content about health, tomorrow about fitness, because COVID is happening and, you know, that's what people are interested in. How do you actually, you know, have a brand thought and let your content actually all feed into that? Okay, you have to stay consistent with your school and your brand thought. Okay, and that is the first one. You cannot just do, you know, all kinds of content, this thing, and get tactical with it. So consistency is very important. There might be variety, but all of it is all leading towards a single brand thought. Okay, now the second part for me is the form and format combination. Okay, what is your content and what is the format of that content? Are you going very long? Are you going very short? Are you making sense? Are you being able to relate to people? And the matrix for all of this would, of course, be engagement. Okay, it is how many people are interacting with you. Okay, and even if the feedback is negative, how do you build in a feedback loop into everything that you do?
Sure. Great. Parthaban is asking, many companies are announcing salary cuts of 25-30% across the board. What do you expect will happen to the demand and purchase patterns? When do you expect it to return to normalcy?
I wish we all had answers to this, don't we? But, you know, so the demand is going to get delayed a little. Okay, there are certain categories that will come out faster. And there are some categories where, you know, it will take a little while for you, for normalcy to return. For me, the most important thing is actually to do these kind of, like I said, some guerrilla tactics to fast track the demand. It is going to be the need of the hour. No matter what you say, we are going to be coming out very bruised out of this. And we really don't know what kind of liquidity situation people will be in, because there will already be salary cuts that are already announced. Now with a smaller wallet, you would want to prioritize and spend on what is needed before what you can actually delay. So that is the reality. On your first question of, you know, salary and pay cuts, there are two ways to look at this. One way is that most companies would have a liquidity of 60 to 90 days, okay, where they will be able to sustain business without, you know, going bust or whatever, and or having to cut down drastically for 60 to 90 days. And after that, some drastic measures will have to be taken, because even the owners of businesses are sitting with their own credits and this thing which they have to pay back. Okay, so one thing that is going to happen is that if this whole moratorium gets extended, okay, and that leeway is available to companies, that leeway will get passed forward to all business operations, including employees and salaries. The other way to look at it is that it is better when the company is going through stress to take a little less, but to at least retain the job. Okay, because if you actually go full salary now and in 3 months go completely dry, then that is a drastic step of not many people losing jobs. The other way is let nobody lose jobs and let people take a little less so that everybody is at least occupied. And when normalcy returns, we'll come back to original salaries. So that choice different companies are taking depending on the liquidity situation.
Sure. Okay, we have one last question, which is by Sushil. In fact, we have a lot of questions, but yes, due to shortage of time, we will be able to field just one more. Sushil is saying that we are private lenders catering to MSMEs. How should we position ourselves post the COVID crisis in terms of focus, branding, and trust building?
So I think one clearly is that, the quality of credit you have to be very, very careful of. Okay. You have to be very prudent with, there are going to be all kinds of NPAs, that could start hitting companies. And I was just reading today in the papers, Ola and Ubers, lots of drivers who've taken vehicle loans, and who've actually gone back, are not able to pay back their loans. And that's at an individual level, but Ola has actually could have maybe underwritten some of those loans. So you have to be very careful with the quality of loans that you give. And the second thing that you have to do is, when you have to assess the quality of the company, can you be a partner with them? And can you actually work with them in bringing the business back to its normalcy? And what other services and value-added services can you provide to them, so that your journey and their journey is interwoven?
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Anisha, for taking time out, joining us. To all the people who attended the webinar, type a yes if you enjoyed this webinar, if you learned something new, if you have definite CTAs, call to actions for your business going forward. And there you go, all the yeses coming in. Someone said 3-4 yeses together. So thank you so much.